So this is the session which I'm going to do today, 0 to Hero with React and TypeScript. So as you found on the description, this I will be trying to cover React basic things, how it is connecting with TypeScript and normal bits and pieces. I'll be telling more later. So I already introduced myself. I'm not going to do that again. So what are we going to discuss today? It is about React, how we can think in React and React concepts and how TypeScript is binding with React, bits and pieces with React and TypeScript we are using in our daily life as front-end devs. So what is React? React is a JavaScript library for building user interfaces. So I have seen many calling React is a framework, but actually it is not like that. To become a framework, it should do more things and it should provide ecosystem. But React is a JavaScript library which handles the UI part of your application simply. So if you are referring a UI, it is a small unit. It can be anything in your application: button, image, text, input elements, like so on. What React actually does is it lets you build UIs using reusable and nestable components. So that means you will be able to think about your application as separate instances, which builds your application UI. I have added official link to this React library. You can find it there. And by the time it is 8.2 version out there, it is growing. I love to see that. And when we are thinking about normal application, it is more like most of the time it is MVC architecture, model, view, and controller. What happens here is user sees the view, user do some interactions, it goes to the controllers where basic things are handling about routing and stuff in our application, and it updates the model or database things, and it updates back again the view. In React, we are mainly focusing of this view part, where the UI is handling how our UI is structured, how we make our UI more efficient here and there. So I have been mentioning about thinking in React for a couple of times now. So let's see what is actually thinking in React. And I forgot to tell that if you have any questions, please feel free to drop in the chat. I'll be try to answer, or otherwise at the end we will have some small time to discuss about those. So if you are thinking about React, if you are thinking in React, actually, it is mainly about your application structure. So if you remember Google search engine page, google.com page, you will find input element and button or images, some links here and there. So this is a UI we can see. If we are thinking in more reactive way, we will be able to see the generic parts of these components. So these UI. So you will be finding links. Every link is similar. If you are seeing home or any other link about like so on, every link is does the similar thing. It shows some text and it has a link. So it is more like identifying unique components and collecting components together to make an interactive UI for your application. So it is simply like that for basic cases. And I have another example to describe this scenario. I think about a forest. When we are seeing a forest, we can see it all green. But if we look closely, you will be finding different type of trees and bushes here and there. So that is how a forest is composed of. So simply, it is similar to your application UI. You will be using different kind of components, elements to make your application interactive and workable. And I have very small example to share with you to explain how we can identify the elements and thinking in more reactive way. Here you can see input box where you can type things, and add item button where you can click on, and below that you can find a list of items. That is probably the items we have added using the input element above. So it has 3 items. As you are adding new items, it's supposed to be adding in the below list. Here, I was explaining, we have a list items like that. So simply in React applications, we identify common elements or reusing elements as one identical things. So it is item component. In this item component, it has a value called the thing we have added. Let's call it item. So item name or something like that. The item name will be displaying in this component. So item name is a property of this component because that defines the behavior of this component. This component does nothing than displaying the things. So the value it persists is the property. So use show list component is containing array of item components. The responsibility of the show list component is containing those item components and arranging those things to make visible on the UI. The last and most important thing is input component. This input component's responsibility is more like taking the value from the input element, and when we are clicking on the add item button, it handles where I should put it on and how, whether it is server call or local state update or something like that. So this is what actually we can find from this kind of smaller UI. So when we are designing, thinking about a React application, normally we take the UI and try to identify components like that. And also many companies has their own design systems. Design system is a kind of a collection of components which they have built earlier to use in the application. So when designers are designing the application, they are tend to use those things. So process is kind of smooth, but overall we can think application is a collection of these kind of components, reusable things, which defines the behaviors and responsibilities of our React application. So we were discussing about React and how to think in React, like so on. But actually, where is TypeScript? Are you there? Actually, yes, because earlier React is actually React is React.js. So React came with JavaScript. We were writing React applications in JavaScript once TypeScript is here. We started to use it because of different benefits and reasons. That is what I'm going to discuss with you next. So let's start with what is TypeScript. Actually, TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript because TypeScript contains all the features you can gain from JavaScript, and it provides many more features. Actually, it is really helpful for developers when they are designing and writing the application. It is very easy to reason about and keep your application more healthier way. So, but this comes with some, what do you call that, some additional effort, but it is worth it, I guess. When we are writing a TypeScript code, we have a thing called TypeScript compiler. It compiles your TypeScript code into JavaScript because at the moment, browsers cannot identify TypeScript itself. Browsers can identify JavaScript. So we have a compiler which compiles your code into JavaScript. Then it will be used on the browser as the way you are writing normally. So this is very small React component we can think of. I'm trying to explain why we need TypeScript in a very smaller scenario. There can be lots of many scenarios, like you can find TypeScript is saving you a day kind of things, but this is very small example I can share with you. Here you can find a welcome component. So this is the way we can write a component in React in as functional component. Here we are sending props. Those are the properties I was keep mentioning about the behavioral values of the component. Here we have a thing called name. So when we are using this component in the app, you can find 3 usages of this welcome component. We are sending name there. So name is John, Sam, and Carl. So when we are rendering this application, we will be able to see hello John, hello Sam, and hello Carl, like that. So when we are writing this with JavaScript, I supposed to know I should send the name as a value to get it displayed on the UI. Or otherwise, I will have to go through the code to identify, okay, there is a property called name. That is what they are using. I am supposed to send it, right? But what happens if someone mistakenly send a different object there? The application won't work as expected, right? Because earlier we were just sending a string. Now we are sending an object. So here we have first name and last name like so. Definitely it won't be rendered on the UI as we expect. So that is the problem we are going to solve with TypeScript. TypeScript is going to provide some typings. Like if you are familiar with Java or something like that, object-oriented languages, you will be finding different types, right? Classes where we are using as a blueprint for the objects. So here TypeScript is doing the very similar thing here, providing a type system to our code. Then we can identify what we should use actually in the exact moments. For me, I feel like it is more like a technical kind of documentation. Using TypeScript is a technical kind of documentation in our daily lives. It is not the documentation we are using in our daily life, but I feel like it is very useful all my day. So I think it will be same for yours as well. So when we are working with TypeScript or any language or anything, we have to set up our development environment. I have been identifying two mostly using IDEs, integrated development environments. One is VS Code, one of the most popular one, which I'm using for my daily work as well. And there is other one, WebStorm, or any of the tool, I guess, from IDEA family, like RubyMine, or every tool from there is supporting this one, I guess. So, and you will be needing few extensions if you are going with VS Code, because IntelliJ already packed it, but VS Code it doesn't. So you will be using some code snippets, TypeScript plugin, and ESLint and prettier things to make your life easier. And there's another tool called Create React App. You who already have used it. If we are using it to generate our initial application, we should use this template tag with TypeScript. Then your application will be created with all the things you need to start development in your TypeScript project. Also, you can add it to an existing project as well. So just go to this link. You will be finding all the details you have to do. What are the differences actually we are getting when we are having a TypeScript generated project? First thing is TSX file, tsconfig.json, and React app env.d.ts file. So these are the three main things you can notify than a normal React application. TSX is TypeScript JSX simply. Normally, when we are writing a JavaScript, writing a React component with JavaScript, we are using JS or JSX normally. Here we don't do that. We do TSX and TS. We have to, otherwise you won't be getting the features. But you can use it together as well. Especially if you are in a migration or something like that, you can keep your both JavaScript files and TypeScript files together as well. And the other one is tsconfig file, where the TypeScript configurations are defined. It has already the default set, but you can add or update configurations based on your preference. And env file for the references of React script. It is another tool React uses simply. And this thing I mentioned, like we have to add ESLint and prettier. ESLint is helpful to identify your code issues, like code smells kind of simply, and prettier for code formatting things. So those are kind of two essential things for me. That is why I added there. And to use it, you will have to use ESLint and prettier files for the configurations. So we were discussing about setting up environments, why we need TypeScript, and basic React stuff. So what is next actually? So the next thing is we are going to be stepping into TypeScript. We are going to discuss how we can write React features with TypeScript and the usages and benefits we can take and therefrom. So actually what TypeScript does, it will work as a guard during the development time. Like I have mentioned, if you are familiar with Java kind of language, it does the same thing. It provides guard to take you in the correct track of your development. TypeScript is doing the same thing. Once it is compiled, it will work as ordinary JavaScript code. It won't change your functionalities, but it will add more robustness to your code. So I have mentioned earlier, there can be a situation where someone can submit object instead of name variable for a welcome component, right? So this is the way we are going to tell to the React component, don't accept anything else than this. This is what I'm trying to accept in this component, right? So we have two ways of letting React know that is my type. This is the one I'm going to be used. So you can simply use interfaces or types. Those are okay to use. I will be telling little more things here and there, but it is okay to use interfaces and types. That is how we are defining a shape of a object we are going to consume in TypeScript. But if you are designing a public API or authoring a third-party library type definition, please always use interface. Then if there is anything wrong going on, people can update it using a declaration merging like that. And if you are for your normal React applications, you can simply use type for consistency, and it is more constrained actually. And because if you have different ways of writing in your application, it is kind of hard to identify, and it will be hard for new joiners to catch up. What should we do like that? If you are following one pattern in your project, it will be much easier. So it is up to you to decide, but using type is more convenient and easy for me at least. So if we are typing our application using types or interfaces, we have to have type, what is the shape of the object we are going to consume, and we have to have add it to the React component in this format. This is how we are defining the shape. I am more familiar with Java, so that is why I'm taking Java as most of the time example. So we are in Java, we define the type and the variable. Here it is not like that. We define the object and we tell this object, this parameter supposed to be defining or having this shape of the welcome prompts. So inside the application, we can easily consume first name and last name, but you won't be able to consume name because it is not included in your shape welcome prompts. So it is not always having one strict type. You can have multiple types and different shapes, different combinations. It is one of the features from TypeScript. You can tell your component, I am accepting this type or this type. I can work with both. Simply a very small example here. I am accepting string or number. I am just displaying it. So it is working like that. This is also same for the large components, like think large components and very complex shapes as well, complex types. If you are using it, you can simply have it all together, just based on your business meaning of your component or the responsibility of your component. So it will help you to make your component more cleaner and more straightforward way of doing one single thing and does it well. And again, the next thing, when you are defining a shape you can define optional parameters, because there can be situations in your components you are not going to accept everything. You will be consuming it if it is available, right? So it is more like a conditional parameter kind of thing, to display a message or icon or something like that. If we have this specific property, it is another example. Here I have another example. If I have age parameter, I am using it. Otherwise, I am going to use 21 as a default parameter, default value. If you really want a value to continue your application, you can do this pattern. Otherwise, you will be getting undefined as the value. So I was showing different examples previously with types, but when you are typing your React component with TypeScript, it doesn't have to be a type as a separate thing. You can type as inline as well. But I don't recommend this pattern most of the times because it is not convenient and it is a bit hard to find what is the actual meaning of this component like that. Sorry. And if you are having a very small case which doesn't have very big business meaning, you can keep it like that. Otherwise, it is a good practice to have it as a separate type. So in addition to that, I have been explaining like we can combine types as O like that. Here we can combine types as AND. So that means we are joining two props, two types together. Button props has color and text, and container props should contain all the things from button props, and it should also contain height as a number. So here you can see the container component is accepting container props, and it has these three values: color, height, and text. It can be consumed inside the application as the way we want. The next thing is type inference. Type inference is a way of TypeScript is identify what is the exact type I should be used if we are not specifically explaining. Like in these cases, we are showing, we are telling like color is a string, text is a string, like that. But in cases like this, TypeScript will automatically identify and assign it for ourselves. So here you can see variable A is some text, variable B is 1, 2, 3, but you cannot assign A to B or B to E because those are in two different types. And also, if you are defining an empty object, like let car as an empty object, this type will be automatically assigned as empty object. So that means this object cannot contain anything else. So simply you cannot add anything else like a name, modus, or anything. So it will return a compile error. You cannot use that. What you can simply do is provide a type. Actually, what is the thing I will be using here? There are a couple of ways of writing this. You can use as keyword, and this way of this is another way of writing it. But it is always a good practice for to type your components than left it behind to infer, because it will infer, but it is not going to be strong as you are explaining or you are providing. Right. Now we were discussing about basic TypeScript things with components, and now we are going to move into the hooks. I'm not going to explain about hooks much because it takes a lot of time, but here I am using a use state hook, which is one of the widely used hook in React. Here I am providing a value to this hook as false. That means false is a Boolean value. Then TypeScript will automatically infer it as to be Boolean. So that means state value will be a Boolean. Set state function will only accept Booleans as well. But you also can type your values. Here I am telling like I am accepting user and null. Here I am adding null as a default value. And also you can define it like that as well, but this is not much recommended way. this can be only used if you are definitely adding a new value right after assigning this one within your application before it is consumed in the UI. Otherwise, it can cause some troubles because it can provide some undefined values. And next thing is events. So I'm pretty sure everyone use this the TypeScript event if you are writing a React applications or any other applications, because that is how we are getting the details from outside. So this is the way we are writing on-click action, on-click event, like simply as a function, arrow function. Here we don't have to define the type, because within this context, type is React knows, TypeScript knows what is the exact event type we are going to be consumed. So it will be correctly typed automatically. We don't have to do it, but most of the cases we cannot write all our logic for on-click activities or mouse over or anything inside this component. So we have to take it out and keep it more readable. So in these cases, we have to type our component. We have to type our function simply. So here I am using React form event. It is a generic object, generic type. Here I am providing HTML input element as it is types. By providing this specific HTML input element, we will be getting all the features available for these input elements for this event. Otherwise, most probably it will complain this is not the correct type, or you will be missing many couple of things you are looking in your code. This is on change event. It is mostly a form event, but React has lots of events. You can find those in the React documentation, but I have picked a couple of things. These are the three main things I have been using most of the times, like change event when something is changing, like when in drop downs we are having select and options, those changes, text area changes like that, and form event changes when we are working with the form and form elements mainly. Form event is another thing, and keyboard event, it is also a valuable thing to identify how what is actually typed and what is actually pressed or so on. And on top of all the things, we have a synthetic event. Synthetic event is a generic or parent type of event object, which is a super type of all the events I have been mentioning, like change event, form event, and keyboard event. All are extended from this synthetic event. Synthetic event is also a normal JavaScript type of event. It is the base event. This is also can be used, but you won't be able to get the features, because when we are typing our object or properties, we are explicitly saying this is the type I am reading. So that means if you are using a wrong type or kind of a parent type, you will be missing the child level properties and things, but it will be working without any problems. But if you are using a wrong thing or wrong value or something like that, you can get help from the IDE. IDE will tell this is very wrong. You are using a wrong object. This is supposed to be this type. I cannot work with this one. So that is why I mentioned you have to configure your IDE properly and make your development environment more strong. Then you will be getting these errors and things on time. It will be helpful to identify, and sometimes it is providing very good suggestions and options to write your components. So simply it is more like this. And I have added common typing set, which we are using normally. So we can use primitive types like string, number, boolean, like that, and we can use array types, and even you can use string values as a type. So that means here the status object can only accept waiting and success as values. So it is another more constrained way of saying how your shape is supposed to be. And you can send objects, you can send on-click events without doing anything, like simply normal function, and you can have a on-change events, and you can have on-click events, like so on. But the next thing, in our normal applications, we most of the time connecting with external APIs, getting the details, sending details, like that. So one thing is fetching data and dealing with external servers or APIs, like that. So we have several approaches nowadays. We have fetch APIs. We can use Axios, React Query, and GraphQL based on your preference and your application requirement, because there's no point of adding more overloading things in your application than you need. But they are the main ways we can use nowadays when you are fetching things. So if you are working with Axios, which is kind of convenient and more easier than normal fetch API, this is the way you can type your application. You have to have a type of the object you are going to be consumed from your endpoint. Here I'm using JSON placeholder, which provides a post object which has ID, title, body, and use ID. In my state, I am having this inside my component. I am having this state, which is post or either null. And here I am handling my errors inside use effect, because use effects is the way we are handling side effects in our React application. Simply you can write this kind of function and call it in the use effect. It will load your data in the initial rendering. You have to have this generic typing for get action. Then it will be automatically identified data is the type of post object, and you can use it without any issues and set it in the use state set post function. The next thing is fetch API. This is kind of complex because it is not much straightforward way. This is one thing I extracted from the community answers from Stack Overflow. In order to have a better typing, you will have to try something like this, but it is bit more code than Axios, but it is also okay. If you are using fetch API, you will have to handle responses and error message types, like so on, because fetch API doesn't do that. That's the other thing. I'm not going to explain about React Query and other stuff, because that is a whole different topic. I'm going to stop that section from there. And next thing is using third-party libraries, because most of the time applications are coming with what it does, not with types. So in order to have the actual typings for these applications, these libraries, you will have to add their TypeScript types that is normally resides in definitely typed repository, which I'm going to tell later. So simply you can use yarn no npm with add types and the package name. That will be the most of the time care convention you have to follow. So add types is a namespace. It is reserved for package definitions, as I mentioned earlier, like it lives in a repository, definitely typed. It is also like partially managed by TypeScript team and the community, like so on. If you have your own type, you can work on. And now I'm going to show you a very small kind of application I have written to explain and demonstrate these features I have been telling for the past 40 minutes or so. So I think you can see my screen. This tab here, it is very small applications. You can add an item quantity like that, and if you add the same item, you will be getting this message. It will be displayed for some time, and you can add other things, and here it will be added here like that. So here I am, as I have mentioned from the beginning of this presentation, this is more like the UI I showed you as example, but it is kind of updated because I wanted to update in the middle of writing this to have kind of different features. But simply it has input component, and it has a list like this. And on top of that, I am using two context for the message you have seen earlier, and the card details, like what are the items in the card, what are the quantities, like that. So I didn't explain about the context in this session because it is kind of a different topics, and it has some different functionalities and features, but I'll be showing you how it is done here. And here I am having these components with tailwind designs. Here we have cart item props. It is like this, and it is just one item as cart item type. It is exported from the cart context. I will show you as well. So this is use context, and here cart item input, which has ref. Ref is the way I am consuming the values I have typed here. And I have use context here, and actually the type will be provided from cart context because the values are exposed from there. I'll be showing it later. And it is just a normal React application. You can see I have layout and other stuff to the UI things. And here the context is the largest part of this application, where I am defining the types here. And this is the initial state. I personally prefer to have initial state than typing it in a different way, because it is kind of convenient to have this. And this is my context, and this is my provider, and here I am sending the values this context can provide. So since it is typed, these values will be automatically available in these places. Like here, if I type it, see it is telling like cart context has this add item function I can use. Simply that is the benefit we are getting there. And this is the message context. It does the similar thing, like keeping the things of the message. If there are any errors, it will pop up the message, like so on. Yeah, this is I wanted to explain how we can use these features and things in normal application, actually real world example. So yeah, then do we have any other alternatives, actually? Because we were using TypeScript and it is providing types like that, but we have other things as well. We have prop types, which is the thing we were using with JavaScript mainly, because it is much convenient to provide the type in the component. But we are no longer going to do that because TypeScript is doing the same thing. And we have Flow. It is also a static type checker for JavaScript. You can use it with anything simply. So what are the different flavors of React and TypeScript? So you can use Next.js, you can use White and Meteor, and the new thing TSDX. It is also nice to discover if you are trying to learn new things and create React app. Also, it's a different flavor. You can, I think you have seen that example I have been shown, like we can use the template tag and add TypeScript to provide this to get this TypeScript object as generated project. Sorry. So there are many things I couldn't explain, and I couldn't get a chance to explain React best practices and state management handling, routing, refs, and concurrency things, and suspense. Those are kind of new things, and high order components, and how we can leverage the features from the UI frameworks like Material UI, so on. But you can discover those things. I'll be adding the references I used when I'm creating these materials. These are the things I have been following, like React docs and TypeScript cheat sheet and TS docs, and also create React app. It also has a good documentation and very small part for the TypeScript. And finally, if you are seeking for your career opportunity, my company Doctorlib is hiring. There are many jobs for developers and designers, like so on. So you can check it. This is just a advertisement, kind of. Don't get it wrong. And so Yeah, slide will be shared. Like actually, I already shared. You will be getting it. Yeah, thanks. So that's all, folks. Thank you for joining with me. Thank you for staying with me for all the time. Like, thank you very much. And if you have any questions, please feel free to drop it here. You can connect with me on these communication modes like Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. I'm active on all of these. Like, you can even drop me an email. I'll be there. And this is my YouTube channel. I'll be posting different things, but I couldn't lately because I moved to Berlin recently. Now I'm going to start it back again. So you will be hearing about those things if you are following me and these channels. Yeah, and thank you very much again. So it is nice to have here, and thank you MentorColor team for giving me these opportunities to share my knowledge, and I like to hear your feedback uh, about this session and your suggestions or anything like that. I love to hear that. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, feel free to like ask any question you have like on the chat, or you can just like raise your hand and like just ask the question directly to Danushka.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. You said something about using add types for adding third-party libraries. Is that for every other library we're going to be working on?
Yeah, sorry,
Any
didn't
other
get the
library?
question.
So I just put that in the chat. You said using the add types for third-party libraries, right? So
Yeah.
So when working with TypeScript, my question is, for example, if I'm going to install Axios, for example, would that be types Axios, or how do we
No,
use that?
it is actually not like that, because if it is a different type set is a different type set supposed to be added to application, it will be mentioned in the docs. Like simply if you are using React and React DOM, you will have to add those types. Like let me share it again.
Okay.
Yeah. Hope you can see my screen presentation, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Here, this is the package JSON. Here, see types React and React DOM, but it is not mandatory, because if there are additional types you supposed to have in order to use a particular library, that will be mentioned in the docs of the library. And if it is not mentioned, you will have to think it like that and find it. And if something is missing like that, or a property is missing, do you remember I have added here, like always make sure to use, where it is. Yeah, I couldn't find it actually. Yeah, always make sure to use interfaces. That is the reason, because if something is missing, you can update it and continue working with declaration merging. So simply like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And the setup for TypeScript is always manual, or is there any faster way of setting up my environment TypeScript? Because I noticed when you were going over the setup, it seemed manual. Or am I wrong?
You are I think you are referring to this one, right?
Yeah, creating the file at the start. Yeah.
Okay. You mean the project structure?
Yeah, the config file.
Config. Yeah, config file. Because like if you are creating your project like this with npx and not npx, actually create React app, you will be getting all the structures like this, like ts config and things you need. Actually, it will be more than this. This is more smaller type providing from the code sandbox, but you will get all the basic things you will be needing once you are generated your project with create React app. It is kind of a standard. Some people don't like it, but it is kind of a standard now. So if you are generating your project with template TypeScript, you will be getting all the things
everything.
you need. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
But one thing, React or TypeScript doesn't opinionate. It is not opinionated about your coding structure or folder structure or something like that. It is up to you. So it is your decision how you can organize and things, arrange your folder structures and code base as your best convenient way.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Welcome.
Hi, good afternoon, good evening. David speaking here. I had a quick question.
Yeah.
Is that possible?
Yeah.
Yeah. What is the no, let me quickly explain it in a different way. I've always been programming in Java, in JavaScript, and now I'm working with C#, but that's just for this other project. Why would I choose as a JavaScript developer to jump over to TypeScript? Could you please elaborate on that one?
Actually, yeah. I'm not sure I'm still sharing my screen, but yeah. I think I had this slide earlier.
Why TypeScript? Yeah.
Yeah. Here,
Yeah.
this is very small example I can tell, but here you can see like I am sending name variable here, but
Yeah.
I supposed to know there should be a name variable which is consumed by my my React component called welcome. Then I'm supposed to send as a string. I might not know, like it can be a number or something, because JavaScript doesn't tell, okay, you should use number here, you cannot use a string, something like that. So that is the thing actually TypeScript is doing. It is coming there and tell whether you can use this specific type or not, simply.
Okay, so you define the objects that you create.
Exactly, yeah. Here.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it is already included here. You can refer it. Simply we do type and interfaces to do the typing. So if you are familiar with Java, like classes, simply.
Okay. Class. Yes. Thank you. Okay, that's logical. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Cool. I see that we don't have any other questions. Just before we wrap up, a couple of things I just want to call out. I know that Juan already shared that in the chat. So you have the link to Danushka's MentorColor account. So you can book him if you want to ask even more questions and like go in depth on a specific use case that you're working on. There's a special